Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Beat the Banks, our free weekly sorry, I had a weird error that just popped up. Looks like arena, we're not doing the arena today. I apologize, guys. Don't know what happened. We were good, then we were not. So, this is our weekly community training where we talk about how you can involve yourself in strategies to help not only just be your own bank through self-custody here in the world of decentralized finance, but also how you can beat the banks by being your own bank. And that's the most important part. I'm just going to take a second to talk about what we're talking about today. Because we're going to talk about real world assets, RWAs, tokenization. Give me 1 second to figure this part out. Because I want to make sure I am currently live streaming, which I believe that I am. Yes. All right, just give me 2 seconds and we'll get started. Just getting the word out. Because in today's world, it takes a little bit more work than usual. But we are live on YouTube. We're live on Twitch. We're live on X. So shout out to everybody who is watching on all of those. All right. So what we're talking about today is about RWAs, real world assets and tokenization. So we've talked about security, we've talked about staying safe, we've talked about a variety of different strategies in terms of like farming for yield, stable coins. Well, actually, we'll kind of lean into that a little bit. And we've talked about various ways that you can find digital assets and add them to your portfolio. Currently, right now, if you've been watching the news, the Clarity Act is probably the biggest thing that's happening right now with regards to where we stand on digital assets as a nation, right? And really to the world, because there's a lot of entrepreneurs that are US based. There's a lot of people who are looking to the US for mass adoption with regards to digital assets. Maybe if America leads, becomes a big part of this, then the rest of the world will kind of jump in. Although I kind of thought it would be the other way around, but I think just the amount of scams and the amount of lack of really good product market fit has really kind of not hampered the momentum, but essentially we're in a situation now where the world is going to be very, I don't want to use the word accepting, because Europe has MiCA, which is the Markets in Crypto Assets Act, where they have an actual framework for that. They don't have a ton of protocols in the EU doing that yet. And then Asia is just kind of like doing what Asia does. So hopefully we'll see a large movement of this moving forward. Now, that doesn't mean that there aren't groups around the world or countries around the world that haven't done anything about it. As you know, El Salvador has long had Bitcoin in their government history now for the last like 7-8 years. Switzerland is another country that allows Bitcoin to pay taxes, other municipal services. That's available. The US also has had some things, right? There are multiple groups who have had access to SEC approval, such as Stacks, the layer 2 for Bitcoin. Even Kalshi had an SEC approval for what they've been doing, so I think since 2018, something like that. There's been a lot of different things that are going on. In Asia, the Philippines, the first country to put their treasury online, they have a private blockchain and another blockchain that's looking to work with them to create all the administrative functions of the country into a blockchain-like environment, which is fantastic. I've seen kind of the workings of some of the things that are happening, and I'm really excited to see what happens there and how that spreads to the rest of the world, because transparency is something that's important, I think, for most people in this world, wouldn't you say? One thing that President Trump has done with both Chainlink and Pith, two oracles here in the space, is put all of the government data, specifically with economic GDP data, on chain. It's more than just that, by the way. I've learned that pretty much every piece of government data can be pushed through this pipeline out to, I think it's like 12 blockchains now that are supported specifically with this data. So anyone can go out and see it, which is good. We need more of this across the world. This will allow us to just have a better look at how our government and how economies of scale are working. If anything, this provides just more legitimacy to blockchain ecosystems, more legitimacy to digital assets, or crypto, as some people may want to refer to it. I refer to it now mostly as digital assets, just because I think crypto has a weird connotation, because most of the digital assets that are out there don't have proof of work anymore, I guess. So I think for me, most of these are coming from proof of stake environments. So I don't think I think digital assets is a much better term for it now. And we'll kind of talk about what that all means and a couple of different things going on. So, sorry, I'm looking for the note that I had here specifically. Yes. But in today's world, we're seeing a move by multiple banks, even in the face of what most senators or just Congress people that are against crypto being integrated, talking about, this is, the president has this, and this, and, we'll see exactly what happens. I personally am fairly bullish on the fact that Bitcoin will do well, but I'm bearish about the fact that the Clarity Act is going to be passed this year. I just think it's going to be an uphill battle between now and, they say, July 4th, but we'll see exactly how that all works out. I don't know how that's going to work out, honestly. But I do hope that we're going to see more and more things come to pass with being able to just have self-custody, because one thing that SEC Chair Atkins has said is that it's in the American DNA to have self-custody, right? To be able to access and hold your own digital assets. You don't have to have a bank. You can be your own bank. I think a lot of people have thoughts on this, and people are like, well, why don't you just put it in a bank? You can earn interest. Like, yeah, but the bank's earning the majority of that interest. I'm not earning it. I'm earning very little interest. There are very few actual banks that actually offer you money in terms of like giving you back money for having an interest-bearing checking account. In fact, most of them have a specific minimum amount, which, if you think about their business model, it makes sense. But they're making money off your money. You're not, right? So giving you the tools to kind of look at what that means, and just some of the other things we've talked about through this podcast. I mean, we've been doing this podcast since January of 2022. We've given a lot of content, a lot of ideas on how you can be someone who can actually self-custody your own assets and what are your options that are out there. So today we're going to talk a little bit about, we talk about stablecoins quite a bit, but let's talk about RWAs and some other commodities that are out there that can make a lot of sense. And the reason why they're important, I think, is because they're going to lead the next yield revolution, I think, of what we're going to be having here in terms of what is considered a safe, let's just call it a safe haven asset, right? Stablecoins are digital assets whose value is pegged to a specific fixed currency, and that can be just about anything, right? For stablecoins, the majority of them are based in the US dollar, but that doesn't mean that you can't have other fiat currencies also marked as stablecoins. Now, the part that's the most important in that relationship is the peg, the value of that peg, and what maintains that peg. You'll have to do some research to make sure you understand what that means. But overall, having a strong peg and having a strong backing for that, for the liquidity that's providing the trades between the assets, regardless of if they're stable coins or regular digital assets, that's the part that's the most important. So looking here at RWA.xyz, shout out to that group, by the way. I've met them on multiple occasions over the past couple of years. The U.S. Treasuries themselves are based off of tokenized government debt, T-bills, stuff like that. And most of these groups, well, all of these groups do own actual T-bills, and they have minted stablecoins off of that. And there's some newer stuff out there that I actually haven't even touched on in most of our content. Like, for example, STRC, which is a new coin that is minted against the dividend yield of MicroStrategy for STRC. There's even a new group called Saturn that's actually doing credit based off of that. It's all very interesting. It just shows that you can tokenize and then provide a financial subsystem for just about anything. It has the right backing and the right momentum. As you can see here, in terms of tokenized U.S. Treasuries, there are multiple groups that provide. In fact, just look at this list. If you just look at this list that I'm seeing here, and it may be hard to see, maybe I should make this bigger. Okay. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 groups that are on this list that provide, as of today, services with regards to tokenized U.S. Treasury bills. So you can see the largest ones here: BlackRock, Circle, Ondo, iBenji, and Janus Henderson and Amoy, and Wisdom Tree. So it's interesting to see how many of these groups are available. Now, some of these groups are actually coming together to have specific treasury funds on blockchains. I know Spyco is one specifically that's coming to Solana with another one. They're doing a specific fund on Solana soon. That just came out in the news right before we came on. So, yeah, just seeing stablecoins that are backed by this is good to see. There's a lot of movement here. There's a lot of things here. The irony is, and here's the interesting irony, most people can't go out and buy U.S. Treasuries. You can. It's just a little bit of a process. Doing it on chain, you get it instantly. Depending on who you go through, right? Because there are certain ones that are like, oh, we can't allow U.S. residents to actually hold them and custody them. I think that's kind of crazy, considering it's U.S. Treasury bills. Now, overall, T-bills give a decent yield, right? Pardon me. We can actually look up what is the current yield on U.S. T-bills. And here you go. You can get to see, most people look at the 10 and the 30 year, but you can see 5% roughly for the 30 year, and just around a little bit over 4.5 for the 10 year. And this is where the majority of those stable coins are minted and issued from. Good way to get yield on these as well, because there are multiple places where you can actually supply these in liquidity markets and earn a supply yield for doing so. Is it high? No, it's not. It's not tremendous, right? It's okay. When I say okay, compared to your bank, it's fantastic, right? It will be lower than buying T-bills here at this probably 4 or 5% rate, but over time, it's a good way to diversify the portfolio. And that's really the key. I'm going to talk about a couple other specific types of commodities that are very helpful, right, or that are very popular right now. And they also kind of lend themselves to the narrative. Like Treasury, T-bills are certainly one thing. This allows, the majority of the world to come through and own some of this stuff. So this part's interesting. They also have things, if you check at RWA.xyz, there's things like credit, there's things like stocks, And these two specifically are going to be very interesting because they're going to lead the next digital financial frontier, if I'm being very honest. There's going to be more institutional money coming into this, which means more regular retail users are going to be very interested in getting and figuring out a way to also get in on the party, because at this point we've been early. We've been early to all of this. And as you can see, if we go to tokenized credit, you can see multiple groups that are interesting that you may or may not already know, right? So Syrup from Maple Finance, they're pretty much the leaders in this space. Now we have some other interesting things that are interesting here too, just such as Prime, which is HELOCs, home equity lines of credit, so second mortgages for a lot of homeowners. You have reinsurance through Henri, which is it's a growing industry. And yes, it is insurance based on insurance. Some people are like, that's a thing? Oh yeah, it's very much a thing. Look for people who do reinsurance specifically for areas of environmental disasters like hurricane relief, stuff like that. It's a very lucrative market actually for stuff like that. But if let's talk about the biggest RWA token out there that I think is worth talking about. People may want to talk about real estate. That's another thing that's on the rise. I just have a problem. I'll be honest. Yes. Was that time-based? I have a real issue with the value of distressed properties with some of these, because you don't know, right? That's the thing. You don't know where you don't know where you don't know where a large amount of this comes from in terms of the backing. Some of it could be good. Some of it could be really good, but there's a lot of cases where it may not be that great. So that's the one thing that I think is interesting. But if you saw the commodities piece, it is very much dominated by gold. So there's two leaders in this space. There's Tether and there's Paxos. They also run very popular stablecoin rails. Tether with USDT, USAT, and USD. Yeah, those are the two. Because I don't know if they have I don't know if Tether has a treasury bill product. I'm sure they have to. I just don't think it's something they talk about all that much. But we can check out on their transparency. Yeah, 82% of 82% of Tether's reserves are now UST bills. So it's just in Tether and USDT or USTT0, which is the omni-chain version. Interesting, the net circulation of other tokens they have, like the Chinese yuan, and is this the Mexican peso? Interesting. And then Tether Gold, which is what we'll talk about. And the reason why this is important, and why people may not think about this, when people are just like, just go buy gold. It's not that simple, guys. Right? If I'm going to buy gold, I have to think about three things. I have to think of, where am I going to buy it from? And is it real? Number two, where am I going to store it? And I probably want to insure it at the same time, right? If something happens to someone coming knowing that I have gold buried in a vault in my basement or something like that, which I don't. Let me just preface that. I hold no physical bars of gold. And then in the event that I want to actually sell it or liquidate that asset, how would I do that? It's actually a big problem, right? For some people, they may not think it's a problem, but it actually is a problem, because you don't want to be in a situation where you are, let's just say you're 85 years old and you've got these bars of gold and you're trying to figure out a way to offload them. Not saying everybody has this problem, but thinking about it, you're like, do you want to go through the process of owning that asset? Also, are you, I know a lot of people in our group are gold bugs, so the value of gold is certain, right? The authenticity of that is the hardest part to always prove. Whereas with Bitcoin, you literally have an easy way to do that. In fact, Senator Lummis said during the markup that the reason why Bitcoin is great is because you can actually have someone memorize a wallet address for their or whatever they're using, and you can still move it from place to place. You don't necessarily have that with gold. The beautiful thing about tokenization specifically is you don't have to hold it physically or worry about the physical consequences, I guess, of holding it physically. You don't have to worry about that. It's just you just have a digital representation of it. It also opens things up to the idea of fractional ownership, right? Do I really want to go and buy a full bar of gold? No. Could you buy ounces of gold? Sure, absolutely. But it's to be able to just have a digital representation of that and just hold that in a wallet, I think is a much more palatable option for the majority of people out there, especially if it can be redeemed in kind, which it can be for these. So having a digital wrapper, a digital representation of this, I think is important, because it allows you to easily move the money quickly, frictionlessly, borderlessly, and redeem it for whatever value that you want, which is frankly not that hard to do, considering the tethered tokens that they have here, which you can then off-ramp into a local fiat currency of your choice. What's great about this is that Paxos and Tether are very much under the microscope. You're easily able to get attestations. There is accounting available. They publish all of this stuff monthly, which is great. They have for a while, because they have to do it for their stable coins. USDG for Paxos, and actually Paxos is custodian for multiple groups, and Tether specifically for USDT, and I guess USAT is because it has to be Genius compliant for the Genius Act. It'd be one thing if they didn't hold a lot of gold. But Tether holds in excess of 1,800 bars of gold. Paxos, I don't think, owns that much, but they do have a lot. They've been around. Do they really literally have Lorem Ipsum just sitting here? That's crazy. Oh my God. Is this the actual... What is going on here? Is this a fake website? Huh. Alright. Well, now I'm wondering if I've... Let me do this the right way. Because I know Paxos wouldn't be crazy enough to do that. PaxG. Yeah, my bad. What the hell is that? I must have clicked on a bad website. Interesting. Well, that, ladies and gentlemen, that's the right reason why to always double check your websites. I've just proven that there. Huh. That must have just been another Pax Gold, because anybody can create quote-unquote Pax Gold, right? That must have been a coin called Pax Gold. My fault on that, guys. So as you can see, it's backed by physical gold that's stored in London. And they have full attestations specifically for this. So instant settlement here, which is good to see. It's regulated, instantly redeemable for physical gold. Beautiful. And what's great about PaxG and XAUT is that there are multiple DeFi exchanges and sites that have yields specifically for this. We look at this all the time. Let's go to Beefy, for example. Here's the XAUT LP. This on Plasma Chain. On Uniswap, this is only on Beefy, but there are multiple websites that have multiple protocols that have LPs specifically for XAUT. And granted, this is at 21%, but this has been as high as multiple hundreds of percent. So if you're looking for, and the reason why this is important on Beefy is because we believe that Beefy is a great site specifically for appreciation using their concentrated liquidity management pool, which is an automated, auto-rebalanced solution. So as long as the price of gold is moving up and to the right, your position will continue to yield very well. So if you are bullish on gold, I do believe this is a fantastic way to do so. So anyway, gold is probably the easiest commodity to get into. There's also oil and energy. Thanks to Hyperliquid, it makes it trivial, but there are other websites on other chains that have very similar types of mechanisms. But Hyperliquid has just become the biggest and the fastest and the easiest way to get it. And these are technically perps, but what we're looking for here specifically is you're not playing with the actual physical asset, you're playing with the exposure of it. And that's the part that's the most important. A well liquefied exposure concept is what you're looking for. You can still profit from all of this without actually having to hold a barrel of oil. And depending on if you have a tokenized RWA version of it, then you do have the exposure and ownership rights of the asset. That's going to be the goal. Once we actually have tokenized stocks fully on chain, for example, this is trade.xyz, there's also xstocks and a couple other things out there. Like this is the official S&P 500 perp for DeFi. There are others that are out there, but the moment tokenized stocks are fully on chain, available 24/7 and instantly redeemable in kind, that's when digital ownership becomes such an important part of the global, just the global markets. And again, we're very early to this, which is great because you have the ability to not only, just get the exposure to it. And that's really what you want, because what if this is not the final form of that, right? Like, for example, let's say you bought a gold bar and suddenly they're like, oh no, this is not the gold bar we're going to recognize. Like they only decide to recognize certain bars or certain types of gold, that actually have a value. Markets have that right? I don't have any dollar bills around here, but if I were to hold up a dollar bill and suddenly someone says that's no longer legal tender, we're not going to accept that as payment, what do you do then, right? That kind of brings up the whole what is money idea. Anyway, just as a thought, because there's the idea that President Trump has asked the mint, and I think it's a thing with the Treasury, where there are certain dollar bills that have his actual signature on it, right? not saying that this is a thing that could happen, but what if they actually said that? What if they said the only dollars we will recognize as legal tender only be the ones with the president's signature on it? Not saying that actually happened, but imagine if it did. That would be kind of crazy. I mean, that would change the way you look at what actual money is, right? So in a world like decentralized finance, where digital assets are recognized tender from a market making perspective, right? There are actual market makers behind the scenes facilitating these trades with their liquidity. They're keeping the system alive, and there's plenty of it. In fact, all of the traditional finance groups are coming on chain to utilize these rails. I don't want you to be out in the cold thinking that this isn't real, because it absolutely is real. It's been built for the last 5 to 10 years, and it's now to a point where it's battle tested, where everybody's coming on board, regardless of if the Clarity Act passes. By the way, the CFTC and the SEC have already put out guidance, along with the FDIC, with regards to what's going on. Charles Schwab has just allowed 7% for all their private clients. For Bitcoin and crypto. I mean, we're looking at what was a 4% recommendation to now 7% at Schwab. Granted, they charge a shit ton in fees, but still, I mean, it's the fact that it's now part of the vernacular at many of the longest running and largest institutions within our country is pretty fascinating, and it just shows you the authenticity of what we're talking about here, what we're actually, coming out with content on a very regular basis. So, being able to have marketplaces where you can actually put all of these assets to work is the real benefit of being in decentralized finance. Because it's one thing to just buy some of this and hold it in your wallet, in a hardware wallet. That's fine. You can do that too. But the ability to actually put those to work to earn additional yield, make it a passive income source, that's the real power of the market making and liquidity pool strategies that we've talked about for the last 5 years in our content. Even better, because of how established these things are, you can actually use them as collateral now in the system, and then borrow stable coins against to then use them as a much more established yield protocol, right? Let's pull up Camino as an example on Solana. And again, these are all stablecoin plays. Yeah, we're looking at in excess of 6%. There have been times where this is over 14, 15, 20%, right? The market does move a little bit, but you're never going to get this at your local savings account. Never. And all of this is just, in some cases, borrowed collateral. I mean, borrowed against collateral that you have somewhere else already, due to an RWA, due to whatever you have out there. So this is you earning passive income as a secondary source that is in a world where it's anti-fragile, censorship resistant. No country owns these ecosystems. And that's the beautiful part about it. You can be anywhere in the world and get exposure and plays to this stuff. And that's the most important part of seeing these things, is that this takes away the border of where those commodities live. You can get exposure to this stuff, just living your life out in the jungle if you want, and just coming back every 2 weeks to figure out your trades or whatever. I mean, that's a very crude example. The point is taking away the borders, taking away the giving you complete access to these funds without having to go through some sort of regulated person. Now, by saying that, that does bring a little bit of risk out there, right? And not everyone is comfortable with that risk, and I completely understand that. But we're in a world where self-custody is going to be the backbone of where finance is going to be very soon. And I want you to be a part of that. And that's really the big thing. That's the reason why we talk about this. That's why it's called Beat the Banks. And we've been doing this for, 3.5 years. Is we want you to be on the next frontier of what's coming next. Because treasuries, credit, real estate loans, mortgages, these are all going to be the new frontier as more of this moves on chain. The ability to not have to worry about what country you're in, to own a piece of, let's just say, some real estate properties. Like, let's say that someone decided to tokenize their resorts on the Amalfi Coast in Italy or something like that, right? And you have the ability to have fractional ownership over one of the units, and you earn passively a piece of the business that comes from that. And you get paid every week, every month, because of your fractional ownership in that property. Not a bad idea, right? If you could have fractional ownership in a group that flips houses without having to flip a house at all, it's all great stuff, right? So being able to tokenize just about anything, introduce it on chain for fractional ownership to a wide variety of liquidity providers. That's the future of what we're talking about. That opened all of this, all of the foundations. It opens up the use cases for a variety of things. To have private healthcare where you get to see someone, obviously through the telehealth thing, or even if you just fly there in person and you pay using decentralized finance methods, using on-chain funds, with a non-KYC credit card or debit card, things like that. These are all possible thanks to all of the innovation, the disruption, the ideation, and now the integration of all that technology over the last 5 years into this year. The possibilities are endless. And I know people still think that this can't be true. The Intercontinental Exchange, which is the parent company of the New York Stock Exchange, has signed an exclusive agreement with Chainlink to bring the entire exchange on chain. Probably within the next 12 months, most likely, but using Chainlink specifically for their off-chain Oracle and smart contract prowess to bring all of that available. To me, it still baffles me that people think that this can't be real. Guys, it's already been built on, and big groups, they're already here using it. Most of the big companies in the world already using it. And they have been. Visa and MasterCard have been testing on blockchains in DeFi. 5-7 years now? Yeah. I mean, it's no secret. Yeah, I mean, they're looking to disrupt everything. Anything to bring the next group of buyers online, they're going to do it because it's easy. AI agents making payments for you so you don't fat finger things. This is all part of the future of what's coming, and it's already here. The rails, the infrastructure, it's already been built. It's non-sovereign, and anyone can use it. This is your way to be able to plug in, get tapped in, and also have that same access. If you like what you're hearing, would greatly appreciate a like or a follow, subscribe, whatever you're watching this on. Greatly appreciate that. Tell your friends about it. This is something we do every Friday, 3 p.m. Eastern. You can check out our free group. And I just realized that my screen has not moved. Maybe it's like an idle thing. Check out our free group here from Beacon DeFi called Total Value Locked. School.com/Beacon. Absolutely free to join. Check out the Start Here post here, third post down. Get a message from myself, our CEO Andrew. Learn a little bit more about our offerings. We have plenty of free content if you want to learn more about decentralized finance and how to get started. But there's also the paid group. If you we have multiple paid offerings. If you want to be a part of our Spotlight subscription, if you want to be a part of our Beacon Challenge, you can earn your first dollar in DeFi within 48 hours. If you want to join our Beacon Mastermind, be among like-minded investors, be amongst the best of the best, and get one-on-one access to us all the time. That's all available. School.com/beacon. Do want to thank all of our members for those offerings, for helping make what we do possible. So again, to recap, we're talking about real-world assets, tokenization, bringing the exposure and in-kind redemption on-chain, available to anybody with an internet connection. This is frankly the future of it. I've always said this is the future of finance, the future we're doing business. Guys, it's already here. You're talking about, oh, maybe one day. No, it's here now. The fact that the biggest issue right now is talking about quantum security, which is something we talked about last week, right? We're going to keep dripping some more of that out to you, because right now a lot of companies are just talking about quantum resistant consensus and stuff like that. Things to make it so that quantum encryption cannot be broken by hackers and everyone takes your stuff. As more information comes out where we can take action, we'll put it out there. But right now, it's more just about the awareness. I can save like some ideas for next week, but the whole thing right now is just to be very safe. There's a lot of terrible exploits going on. So if you are installing new things, just be very careful with that. Just be very careful in general. There's a lot of bad actors out there right now. A lot of people looking to take your digital assets. So follow all of our safety and security guidelines to make sure you're there. And we'll see you next week. And any questions, feel free to reach out. Thanks for joining us today. Again, if you liked what you heard, please send it to a friend. And let's get the awareness out there. Next Friday is World Pizza Day, Bitcoin Pizza Day. You can check, let me go to the website. I think it's globalpizza.party. Yeah, globalpizza.party. And you can find a city that is going to be hosting a party on that day. We're having one here in the local Nebraska area, 5 p.m. It's going to be in Omaha, in southwest Omaha, or West Omaha technically, at a very excellent New York-style pizzeria. All of the branches except for the two here are in Williamsburg, in Brooklyn, New York. So yeah, Williamsburg Pizza, that's where we'll be. We'll be live streaming. I know there's a bunch of other people also live streaming, but we'll be live streaming directly from my connection to try and get, just kind of talk about what's out there. Probably won't be a whole lot to talk about, but we'll try and make a little bit of content. But this is all about the lore about, with Pizza DAO, about the gentleman who paid for 2 pizzas with 100,000 Bitcoin to somebody. I don't know if you know the true lore. I'll make some content specifically about it, but it's going to be a great party. Meet other digital asset like-minded investors. Talk about what you heard about today on Beat the Banks if you want. But the key is to go out, make these connections, because a lot of people don't realize that a lot of people are here also just looking for other people to talk to, other people to understand this fantastic subsystem we have in front of us for harnessing the next great global transfer of wealth to everyday people like you and me. So yeah, next Friday, Global Pizza Party, May 22nd, 7 days to go. Check out one in your area today. Just go to find your party and then put in your city. You should be able to find one that's close to you. Or there's still time. You could probably host a party and aggregate all those people around you. All right, well, with that said, we'll see you next time. 07, as we say here on the show. Let me get back to my big head. Keep eating those banks. Beacons up, banks down. Have a great weekend, everybody. Take care.